Great. Hi, everyone. Very excited to be here. My name is Matt Mandel. I work at Aerofarms, which, we're a world leader in vertical farming. And at Aerofarms, I work as our farm development associate, which basically means I wake up every morning and I ask myself, how can I build more vertical farms? Whether it's farms in the US, farms internationally, farms that Aerofarms will own, farms that we'll work with partners to build, that's my obsession. And so if you have questions about building farms, happy to talk about that during the Q&A. Great. So, I think today I'm really going to talk about, why vertical farming, what is the problem that we solve, and why is this technology important? I'll talk a bit about Aerofarms' approach, the technology that we use. And then we'll also come back to this theme that you see on the slide here of farming locally, globally. And the first time you read that, you might think that's like an oxymoron. What does that mean to farm locally, globally? For us, farming locally really means that when we come to a new community, when we build a new farm, our perspective is really a bottoms-up perspective. It's understanding the problems that that community faces and understanding how we can tailor our technology to solve their problems. So on the one hand, we have this local focus, but also we have a global focus. We don't only want to be solving problems in the United States. We're building up capabilities in the Middle East, but we don't only want to be in the Middle East. We really want to meet everyone all over the world, wherever they are. And so that really gets to our global ambitions. And so that's a theme that we'll come back to throughout the presentation. Let's see if I can change slides. There it goes. Great. So what's the problem that we're addressing here? So obviously, agriculture is a tremendously important industry. No matter what else is going on in human civilization, we need agriculture, right? We need food. And in a lot of ways, we've been served well by the current ag industry. But there's one kind of like persistent problem that it faces, and that's that it's totally beholden to nature. So, we take for granted that certain crops will only be able to be grown in certain geographies, and even then, only at certain times of the year. So that means, I'm based in New York right now. Vertical farms aside, if I want to have a salad for lunch today, I'll probably be eating lettuce that was, traveled from California or Arizona, which means, probably came by plane over many days, maybe weeks. That process means that there'll be a reduction in freshness. The less fresh product will be of lower quality, inevitably. As quality degrades, you'll also see food spoil, which hurts the cost structure of the enterprise, but also just bad from a food sustainability and usage, not wastefulness perspective. Also, just long logistics supply chains are they're expensive. They're not ideal from an operating perspective, and they also have the negative externality of carbon emissions on the environment. You're burning jet fuel or other fossil fuels in the trucking to get the product from point A to point B. So in a lot of ways, this being beholden to nature and having to kind of play by nature's rules presents difficulties for the ag industry as it is. There's also the issue of, when you have a totally open field, you invite pests into the field, which incentivizes farmers to use pesticides or herbicides or fungicides, whatever it might be, which of course are suboptimal from the consumer perspective. And then there's also the problem of, again, the open fields can have contaminants like E. coli or salmonella. And, every so often we'll see large-scale recalls, especially in leafy greens, because of the contamination of salmonella or E. coli. And that's really where, our approach and our technology comes into the picture. There's a picture of our commercial farm in New Jersey. And, as you can tell, it's a totally different approach from conventional agriculture. Our indoor farms are, they're clean spaces. If you look at our team members, they're wearing, PPE so as to prevent contamination and really keep that food safety top of mind. Also because it's indoors, it could be snowing outside in New Jersey, and we could still be producing high quality leafy greens that can be eaten, in a hyper local way by the community. And so that really gets to the distinction between, where ag has been, which is, vulnerable to nature, beholden to nature, and to where it's going. This robust, safe, clean solution. And by zooming into our technology, we can talk a bit more about how it actually works and also how it serves its function of replicating what's done outside, allowing us to produce great food, but then also allowing us to improve upon and further optimize. So one thing that we take for granted is plants need sunlight. People will think that, but the reality is plants actually don't need sunlight. What plants need is just light. And so when you go to the indoor farm, we say, okay, how can we replicate the sunlight that plants get outdoors? Well, for us, we use light emitting diodes or LED lights to provide that light to the plant. And so on the one hand, we're bringing the same function that happens outdoors indoors, but then we also ask, how can we improve upon it? So, out in the field, you might have a cloudy day, and the plants, though they want sunlight every day, they might not be able to get that sunlight. There are no cloudy days inside a vertical farm. Our LED lights are going 365 days a year. And even more than that. So as, something that's very important to us, we're a company of scientists. We pride ourselves on being experts on plants. And something that we understand well about plants is that what they want isn't monolithic. It changes crop to crop and also changes over the course of their growth cycle. And so, if a plant is just out in the field, it gets the light that it gets from the sun. But in our systems, we can actually optimize the spectrum of light, the intensity of the light, depending on where the plant is in its growth cycle. And so it's just that nature of having more control over the environment allows you to further optimize on the grow process. Another place where we see this is, in the field, use soil, and we kind of take for granted, like, of course, plants grow in soil. And the soil really serves two functions. On the one hand, it's a grow medium for the plant. So, provides a place for the plants to develop a root structure and grow up from. Soil also provides nutrients for the plant in conventional farming. But soil is also suboptimal in a variety of ways. No one wants to eat soil. It can invite, contaminants to the grow process. And so we ask ourselves, how can we replicate the functions of soil in our farms, but in a way that doesn't have those negative risks? And so, first, in terms of the grow medium, you'll see here that we have a cloth that serves the same function. But the advantage of the cloth is that it doesn't have the risk of inviting contaminants into the system. And then in terms of the nutrients, instead of just having, fertilizers in the soil that the plants can hopefully absorb up, we actually have like a precise nutrient solution that we can target to the plants. And similar to the light, it turns out plants want different mixes of nutrients, different levels of nutrients, depending on where they are in their growth cycle. And in the field, you're somewhat, stuck just with the nutrients that happen in the soil. Whereas in our systems, we can actually use our nutrient delivery systems to precisely deliver like the cocktail of nutrients that the plant wants. Great. And so, all this technology gets you to our end product, which you see here. There's a salad with our microgreens, which are great, by the way. If you haven't had Dream Greens microgreens, would highly recommend. And I think, this is a good place to emphasize that Aerofarms is not just a leafy green company, though, the leafy greens get a lot of coverage, and that's where the focus is right now, certainly. For us, that's really the first crop of, crops. Our ambition is to take anything that could be grown in the field, and anything from the field that could be grown indoors, and to figure out how to commercialize that indoors. And so, we're proud of the work that we've done with leafy greens. We think that we've developed great products, but we're really, this is the first step. And that distinction really gets us to Aerofarms' mission. Our mission is to grow the best plants possible for the betterment of humanity. And, this idea of serving humanity, working towards the betterment of humanity, solving the problems of traditional ag that we talked about earlier, for us, those aren't just, talking points. It's not just like something to name check or, like a box to check. It's really fundamental to who we are and what we do. So you'll also see on this slide that we're a certified B Corporation. And if you're not familiar, a B Corporation is similar to a C Corporation. It's a way to incorporate a company. But where a C Corporation only has obligations to shareholders, to maximizing shareholder value, the B Corporation actually has formal obligations towards social good. And so for us, when we talk about, we want to help communities, we want to, develop more sustainable solutions, it's not just a talking point. It really is constitutional to who we are and what we do. So getting at this idea of how important it is to us to work with communities. When Aerofarms comes to a new location, it's very important to us to make it a collaborative effort. We don't want our farms tacked onto the community. We really want them to be, meshed in and a part of the community. So we work with local government, local leaders to understand, what do you need and how can we figure out how to use our technology to meet that need. And you can kind of see, the impact that Aerofarms can have on a community with this picture. So before we built our commercial facility in New Jersey, the site looked like it does on the left here. It was an abandoned steel mill. It wasn't economically productive. It was a bit of an eyesore for the community. But now, it's a great futuristic farm that delivers fresh, healthy produce to the community. It brought jobs to the community, and it's become a bit of a point of pride for the community. And when we talk about working with the community, we're very proud to create jobs. We're proud to, build a great business, but we can also operate at all levels of scale. So, in the back of this picture, you'll notice one of our grow systems in a classroom in New Jersey. And we realized that our technology can also be used at the small scale as a great educational tool. So we worked with former First Lady Michelle Obama, who you see in the picture, who's a great champion for education around nutrition. And we realized that incorporating one of our grow systems into a classroom could actually be a great way to teach students about nutrition, horticulture, plant science, and really empower students to feel like they have ownership over the food that they eat. And, for all this work that we've done, the technology that we've developed, our work with communities, we're proud to have been recognized by, many different groups. One thing to call out here is we were one of the best inventions of 2019 by Time Magazine. And we're grateful to have been recognized in this way by all these different groups. But really, Aerofarms' focus, it's not on what we have done. It's not, where we're coming from. It's where we're going. So for us, it really is day one, and we're looking forward to the future where, we've commercialized many different crops and we're in communities all over the world. And, building on this idea of our global ambitions, it's really reflected in our financial partners. So of course we have a strong, American presence with the groups that we've partnered with, but we also have presence in Europe, in the Middle East, in Asia. And, it really speaks to the idea that, again, it's not a talking point for us becoming a global company. It really is like a fundamental part of our vision. We think communities all over the world could benefit from, having our technology, and we look forward to understanding, what are the conditions on the ground, whether it's in, South America, the Caribbean, Africa, Europe, Middle East, Asia, wherever. What are the conditions on the ground, and how can our technology, be tailored to solve the problems that they face? And so that, that really brings us back to where we started, to this idea of farming locally, globally. Again, Aerofarms sees itself as we're a change the world company. We have a very, meaty, ambitious mission of, growing the best plants possible for the betterment of humanity. But again, we're obsessed with the local. We want to understand, what is going on at the local level. How can we work with local leaders? And that collaborative bottoms-up approach is really, really important to us. And so I hope this presentation gave you a better feel for, what's the problem that we think we're solving? How are we going about solving it? And then really, our perspective on what do the next, 5-10 years at Aerofarms look like? How do we want to go about building and expanding our business? So I think, we can leave it there and open it up to some Q&A.